Welcome to the FF Forge. My name is Steve. Welcome to the Week 3 running back rankings. This sheet that you are going to be seeing throughout this video, first of all, I will go through the tiers, top several tiers of running backs. I'll go through my top 30 running backs or 31, wherever that tier ends up cutting off. And you can find my complete rankings, though, if you need more, up on the website, www.thefforge.com. Link down in the description and also just right below me. You can also come visit me live on Sunday for my final rankings 1 hour prior to kickoff and ask any start-sit questions that you have. Or you can always just visit the website throughout the week, where these rankings do get updated throughout the week as we get more news, as things change. But at least these tiers give you an idea of where I don't expect a player to fall out of. We have quite a bit to get to, so let's just quick recap Week 2. How did I do with my DFS buys, which I will have my Week 3 DFS buys at the end of the video. I gave you Dameon Pierce, who was also a love of mine, so obviously a failure in both of those circumstances, and Kenneth Walker, who finished 13th, so I believe he was at a pretty good price, and that would have paid off just fine. My other love was Rachaad White, so that worked out. 50-50 there, and for my fadeums, I had Raheem Mostert, big time failure on fading him, and then Najee Harris was my other fadeum and absolutely was correct in that instance. So 50-50 all in all across the board for Week 2. Hopefully I can do a little bit better in Week 3. Now let's move on to my Week 3 rankings. And first of all, the Browns just signed Kareem Hunt today on Wednesday, and I'm not overly concerned about that for Jerome Ford. I think that Jerome Ford is still going to be the guy there, especially this week. Now, it's not a great matchup for Jerome Ford, but anyways, as far as looking into the future, not overly concerned about that. And I'm not scrambling to get Kareem Hunt onto my roster as a flyer, but I'm not going to argue against it if you want to take a chance on that. Just expect that to be at least a 2-week experiment, because I doubt this weekend that you'll see too much from him. Now let's get to my first tier of running backs. Starting off with my running back 1, we have Christian McCaffrey, followed by Tony Pollard, Bijan Robinson, Kenneth Walker in at running back 4. Did I say wide receiver? Meant running back if I did. And Travis Etienne at my running back 5. Almost said wide receiver again. Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry to wrap that up at my running back 7. These guys are all must starts. You're playing them. Let's move on to my second tier. Kind of a little tier, just not quite as confident in these guys, but at my running back 8, I have Ramondre Stevenson, followed by Raheem Mostert, Aaron Jones, who may or may not be back this week. I'm expecting him to be back, though, because I don't think that was a major hamstring injury. Then Jahmyr Gibbs, and then Joe Mixon in at running back 12. Now, you see Raheem Mostert, and you see he's going up against Denver, and your gut reaction is, another bad matchup, right? Well, actually, Denver has been the 10th best matchup for running backs through the first 2 weeks of this season, so maybe it's not so bad. They really have not looked like a good defense this far into the season. Then Jahmyr Gibbs in at running back 11. I don't think that it's any kind of guarantee that Gibbs' role changes by much, with the loss of David Montgomery probably for this week. And Atlanta has done well against the run so far this season. But this is the state of the running back position right now. It gets ugly/iffy quite quickly. So I'll take the shot on Jahmyr Gibbs for that upside in this week with very little question. And so I kind of glossed over it. I have Joe Mixon as a fadeum this week, my running back 12 in the second tier there, going up against the Los Angeles Rams. You'll probably find yourself, it'd be hard to not play Joe Mixon. Limit my expectations. If there's a tie somewhere else on my roster where I'm thinking between two players, maybe just go for the upside guy, the guy with the higher ceiling in that situation, simply because you're not expecting Joe Mixon to have a huge week. That's all. And obviously he could have a huge week. But on top of the Joe Burrow concerns and his efficiency concerns and how the Rams have looked over the first 2 weeks, I think there's a decent chance that he could be very limited. Then Josh Kelly in at wide receiver 13 to start off my third tier here. And he is a love. I'm going up against the Minnesota Vikings. I have 14 spots higher than the ECR as of, I believe, early afternoon, we'll call it. I think that's right. So I don't know if that has changed at all, but I'm absolutely loving Josh Kelly this week. I'm willing to give him another shot. Last week was a very, very tough matchup, and especially for his running style, I think that he'll be able to find more success against Minnesota, though their biggest weakness is in their passing game. Teams have been attacking him quite equally beyond the ground and the air, so I love him. Running back 14, I have Kyron Williams. Running back 15, I have James Cook going up against Washington. A couple spots behind ECR here. Not really for any reason. Then Brian Robinson in at running back 16 and Miles Sanders at running back 17. And he is a love him going up against Seattle. Finally, a good matchup for him. Seattle has allowed the single most fantasy points to the running back position of any team. So give a little bit of faith this week to Miles Sanders to give you a good week. And my next tier of running back starts off with Tyler Algier in at running back 18. Oh, once again, going back to this going up against Detroit. Didn't talk about that. It's a good matchup against Detroit. I will say the reason I could totally be wrong here is if Detroit gets up on Atlanta, which is definitely possible. It's just not quite what I'm expecting. Then we could see what we saw last week, which was that in the event of a negative game script, we are seeing them lean on Bijan Robinson more and Tyler Algier less. So if this game goes a little bit sideways on them, then this may not come through. But I do expect Tyler Algier to be highly efficient in his opportunities. And I think that this defense is going to allow Atlanta to score a few points this week and give Tyler Algier chances for a touchdown. Once again, it's really an ugly running back situation this week. Moving on to my running back 19, I have Rachaad White going up against Philadelphia, a couple spots higher than ECR on him. When I look at Rachaad White, Alexander Mattison, and I had James Conner, actually. I moved to Najee Harris up one spot. I had them all next to each other, and I was trying to debate between them, and I like Madison's matchup the most. Going up against Philadelphia and Dallas are two of the toughest matchups for running backs for Rachaad White and James Conner. So what I ended up doing was looking at their targets, and with 5 last week, I kept Rachaad White in the lead of this group, and then I put Madison right in the middle of the two due to his matchup. And what was very concerning was the fact that James Conner only had 1 target last week. That's not going to be good for his fantasy value if that is something that continues. That was a big part of his value as a running back. Hopefully that changes for him, but in a matchup that will make it real tough on the ground, I don't have a lot of hope for James Conner this week. Maybe I should have made him a fadeum. He's a pseudo-fadeum. We'll just call him that. Not an official fadeum. As far as Najee Harris goes, at my running back 21, going up against Las Vegas. I've talked about this in, I think, all of my videos, expecting Pittsburgh to right the ship a little bit this week, going up against Las Vegas. They are the 6th best matchup so far this season for running backs, so we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. My main concern and why I don't have Najee higher is because I'm not too sure that Jaylen Warren is going anywhere. He could still get a fair amount of use and limit the upside for Najee Harris this week, which would be, just make it tougher and tougher for him to really succeed. Then at running back 23, I have Isaiah Pacheco going up against Chicago. Really love the matchup. Loved the matchup last week too, though, and it didn't work out so well, so who knows. And I just remembered, as far as Miles Sanders, Isaiah Pacheco go, they're not technically love'ems here. They are my backup love'ems in the event that Eckler were to go out. And I just couldn't decide between the two, so I wanted to let you know about them, that I am liking the situations for them quite a bit this week. That's all, but my official love'ems are Najee Harris and Josh Kelly. Let's move on to my last tier of running back, starting off at running back 24. We have DeAndre Swift, 7 spots behind the ECR. He is a fadeum for me. I assume that Kenneth Gainwell will be back, and assuming that we don't get any further information about that situation, which I doubt that we will get, then at least, not up until like minutes before kickoff, then I'm not positive that they won't go back to a weak type 1 of split. Additionally, Tampa Bay has been quite good against the run so far this season, so I'm weary of both of those guys in general and probably not wanting to play them this weekend. See how the news cycle goes, and maybe I'll have to move DeAndre Swift back further, or maybe move up, and I could like him quite a bit more. And then in that instance, he would not really be a fadeum if Kenneth Gainwell's not playing at all, or if we get some sort of clear picture for DeAndre Swift that he is going to be the starter going forward. Then Breece Hall was my backup fadeum and at running back 26. Typically, New England is good against the run, but we all saw what Raheem Mostert just did last week against New England, so there is hope for Breece Hall. I suspect we'll start to see his workload ramp up this week as well, but I'm still not overly optimistic about it yet. I don't know that it'll quite fully be there, and I kind of want to see exactly how much that ramps up this week. I skipped over Jerome Ford at running back 25, then at running back 27, we have Saquon Barkley. Barkley. So these are just the guys who I would guarantee start ahead of Saquon, even if he is the starter, no matter how good the news really is about him being the starter or Thursday night. You know, do what you want to do. I just am avoiding playing Saquon no matter what, really, this week. Then at running back 28, we have Javonte Williams going up against Miami, and I'm going to be optimistic about him this week. Miami is the 7th best matchup for running back so far, based on average fantasy points scored against them. So, once again, going to be optimistic about that. Running back 29, I have Zach Moss, 30 Khalil Herbert, and 31 Dameon Pierce. And I was kind of at a split between all of these guys, so how did I end up determining who's the highest? And, you know, it's rough already at the position. These are not good matchups for these guys. Baltimore's very good against the run. Kansas City's been good against the run. Jacksonville's been good against the run. And we don't expect that game script to be good for Dameon Pierce yet again. Moss did just have a great week, though, so we liked that from him. Then Khalil Herbert basically is in a split backfield already, so that concerns me a little bit. And Dameon not only has the worst matchup of the three, but he's also in a split backfield, essentially. And his role does not project forward well against what we expect to be one of the better offenses in the league. Jacksonville expect a negative game script, which is not good for the running game, not good for a non-receiving running back, despite a rough start to that Jacksonville offense so far this season. Expect them to right that ship a little bit. As far as Kenneth Gainwell goes, talked about DeAndre Swift. If we get even the slightest whiff that Kenneth Gainwell will be the starting running back this week, I'll push him up to probably my running back 28 behind Javonte Williams, and be optimistic or be willing to take the risk on either of those guys to see where that takes me, if that's where I'm at with my running back position this week. Of note, Kendre Miller. I currently have him ranked 38th, so in the next tier, I believe. If things were to trend really well for him in the news, then I wouldn't be too afraid to put him as high as like running back 18 ahead of Tyler Algier and that mess that's right behind him, as he will be facing the 9th best matchup for running backs in the Green Bay Packers. And there has been some good news coming out about him already, but one thing I hadn't quite thought of was the chance that they game plan and utilize Taysom Hill a lot in this game. That would not be good. So I don't think I would ever quite have the faith to get him as high as running back 18, like I kind of thought yesterday. But what I'm trying to say really is that Kendre Miller, I think, would be useful if he is projected as the starting running back this weekend. Then Craig Reynolds for the Lions, currently my running back 42, assuming that there is no David Montgomery. I just don't trust his run style against the 49ers. I think that he'll be highly inefficient, despite thinking that he may get something close to David Montgomery's usage and having that role. They also added Bam Knight this week to their roster, and I could see Bam Knight maybe coming in and getting a little bit of work. So that's it for my rankings. Now for some DFS buys, and if you're willing to pay for it, Josh Jacobs is at the cost of $7,000 on DK, and I think that he could be a slam dunk this week. The Pittsburgh Steelers have allowed the 3rd most points to running backs so far this season, so good matchup, and I think a matchup where they're going to want to establish that run game. And if you're looking for a bargain, Kendre Miller could be worth a long shot at $4,300. He could get the work, and Green Bay isn't afraid to let the running back run all over them from time to time. A slightly more expensive option, but safer option, would be Tank Bigsby at $4,700. Houston has allowed the 2nd most fantasy points to the running back position this season. Expect them to get into a lot of opportunities, be in a positive game script. All things that should work well for Tank Bigsby, getting some good chances to put up some fantasy points. That is it for this week's running back rankings. Thank you very much for coming on in. Like, comment, subscribe if you made it this far, and you have a good one. Good luck this week. Good luck on Thursday with your fantasy matchups. And feel free to ask any questions in the comments if you have some. Thank you. Bye-bye.